Board of Advisors is kind of our flagship program. That's the very first program we launched. And that's specific to women leaders who are looking to join a board. We have what we call our faculty advisors who are sitting nonprofit, private, and public board members who come into the space. And we run cohorts pretty small, like 5 to 7 women about. As I had told you, we're kind of early on in this process. We're almost at our 2-year mark. We're headed into our 4th cohort that's launching in early January. And one way would be if there's a woman leader out there who is looking to join a board or even thinking about board service, an extension of their leadership journey at some point. Another way that I work with people, yes, is one-on-one. So doing career coaching, doing resume review, or working with professionals who...
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Kevin, and today we are joined by Samantha Carroll. She is the co-founder of Light Her Way, been in the communications industry for 20 plus years and turned into an executive and leadership coach. Welcome to the show, Samantha.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to learn a little bit about you. One of the first things I always love to do on this podcast is to hear the origin story, the lore. You could have been a lot of different things. You could have been a roller skating manager somewhere in Atlanta. You could have been a dance party coordinator. You could have been a Vietnamese coffee connoisseur in your 20s and whatnot. But out of all things, you chose coaching and you chose to turn it into business. So how did you get here?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I've always really been interested in storytelling and personal stories, like human interest stories. And so going back a really far time, when I was 19, I was an intern at Dateline NBC. And the story that I was assigned to, this was a summer internship, was the story of the Columbine shooting 1 year after. It was the aftermath. And it was such a time of understanding how to engage with different stakeholders, how to listen to people's stories, how to allow them to talk and to share and to build trust. And from there, I kind of developed the idea of storytelling by going to work for Comedy Central. So I was doing production work in the TV, entertainment, and media industry in New York City. It was a great time, and I worked on just like some awesome productions with, Dennis Leary, and Hugh Hefner was my very first Friars Club roast, and, Ava Tell, and these big names. And it was so much fun, and I loved the storytelling aspect, but I really was craving understanding sort of the behavior and the strategy of the communication business. So that brought me back to go get my MBA at Georgetown University at McDonough School of Business. And when I came out, sort of did a 180 and went to work in management consulting for Booz Allen Hamilton. And I was doing strategic communications and change management. So I was bringing with me all of my kind of interviewing and storytelling and stakeholder engagement expertise and applying it to government consulting contracts. And what I found was leadership coaching was sort of embedded in a lot of the change management and communications projects that I was working on. So it's not like I sort of set out to be a coach. I really loved consulting. And as you know, consulting and coaching, are relatives, but they're different. They're kind of different animals too. And I found that in order to be successful at managing change and transformation that was happening within organizations, there was always a piece of coaching that was necessary so that that transformation was sustainable. It wasn't just us, coming in and saying, this is what needs to take place. It was really about understanding the stakeholders and their behaviors and their values and their attitudes and what is really going to shift actions, right, within that environment. So the coaching piece of it has sort of been there, but I've cultivated it over the years. So it came out as me working with C-suite level leaders or government leaders and helping them shape their own stories. How are they communicating about the work that they did? Doing their profile or doing a byline about them. When I left management consulting, I then started my communications consultancy, Once Upon a Brand, and what was working with organizations in healthcare and education and tech, nonprofit sectors. And again, embedded in a lot of that work is not just career coaching, but really executive coaching. And that really led me to Annette because I identified that Emory University's Alumni Association, where I went as an undergrad, was doing career coaching and offering alumni career coaching. And I started watching some webinars and thought, wow, this is a lot of what I'm doing. I'm doing personal branding coaching and executive branding. And how do you communicate your value in different spaces? So I became a communications advisor with the career coaching for the association and saw my co-founder for Light Her Way, her picture on the website. So she and I actually both graduated Emory with honors in economics and were in the same honors program as, I guess, 21, 22-year-olds, long time ago, and had only really talked a couple of times. But she had taken her expertise at companies like Google and Cisco and Microsoft, and during the pandemic decided to shift and get certified as an executive coach. So she's also doing career coaching with Emory. We literally had one conversation wanting to just reconnect because we saw each other on the website. And although we didn't know that it was called Light Her Way, at the end of that conversation, we said, let's do a group coaching program. And our very first program that we designed is the Board of Advisors program, which is a women's board readiness cohort.
One of the questions that strikes me is so often people want to start their own business, but here you met like a former classmate, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you decided to launch something together. What led to that decision? Why not do something on your own versus
Mm-hmm. Great question. So Annette and I, in that one conversation, realized that we both were very active with women's communities. So women's different networking circles. She got her MBA at Anderson at UCLA and was president of Anderson Women and really rooted in a lot of sort of like-minded communities. And as the two of us were looking to learn more about board service and joining a board of directors or an advisory board, we realized that although there's a lot of information out there, there's not a lot of coaching. And we really kept having these conversations with women who would say, I really don't know how I got on a board. It just kind of happened. And we'd say, well, if we can peel back those layers and identify some systems that took place, maybe we can then replicate it, right? For other women like ourselves who were sort of like mystified by this process. So we started just sharing stories and our interest and realized that by tapping into both of our networks, we could identify and pull together a lot of curated spaces with experts and other coaches and really have some transformative conversations. And that's really why it was sort of like the two of us would be stronger, right? Than if I had done it on my own or she had done it on her own. And we identified that pretty quickly.
How do people kind of find you? What kind of marketing have you kind of experimented with?
Well, great question. Yes, visibility is a huge concept to kind of deconstruct and figure out where are those pockets of women who this is an issue for, who are looking for spaces to connect with. And so, early on, we tapped warm communities. We talked to the women who we were friends with, who had gone to maybe business school with us, had been in other women's communities, and just really started talking about the work that we were doing. I'm also part of different communities like NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center, which is the nonprofit arm of NASDAQ, and which is a fantastic community, and they do a lot for women founders. And so reaching out in those different communities was one way. The second way was establishing our credibility, right? And so it was not just about what the two of us brought. It was, where can we kind of tap into the expertise of other women who had really kind of reached a certain level and could share their stories, could share lessons learned, and could also be sort of a conduit to increase access for the other women coming through. So we really positioned our value as a place where incredible conversations could happen that potentially these high-level women leaders may not have either had access to or just hadn't really dipped their feet in yet. And so we were kind of able to bring it to them. So going back to your question of visibility, webinars have been really successful for us, being able to pull together people from all over the world. We also run a monthly, completely free networking hour called Connect Hers Roundtable, which is really neat to see just the extent of our reach. We've had people come from South America, from Canada, from Europe, from Africa, and it's just the power of LinkedIn. We use LinkedIn as our primary tool. And we do a lot of outreach. Honestly, a lot of conversations. And the really cool thing too, I think, about those conversations is that it is rare for us to end a conversation without someone saying, I have two people I want to connect you with. And so just kind of like that ripple effect has been just kind of helped us get sort of an exponential growth.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So you're hosting events where people can meet each other.
Yeah.
You're hosting webinars. You're doing your thing on LinkedIn. You're getting a lot of referrals.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure people are raising their hands and they're just like, oh my God, how do I work with you, Samantha? Right? And so once people are kind of interested, what does a coaching engagement look like? What do your offerings look like? Are they mostly like one-on-one, organizational trainings?
Great. Yeah, question. So Board of Advisors is kind of our flagship program. That's the very first program we launched. And that's specific to women leaders who are looking to join a board. So we have what we call our faculty advisors, who are sitting nonprofit, private, and public board members who come into the space. And we run cohorts pretty small, like 5 to 7 women about. And, as I had told you, we're kind of early on in this process. We're almost at our 2-year mark. We're headed into our 4th cohort that's launching in early January. And so one way would be if there's a woman leader out there who is looking to join a board or even thinking about board service as, an extension of their leadership journey at some point. Another way that I work with people, yes, is one-on-one. So doing career coaching, doing resume review, or working with professionals who are maybe looking to establish more of an executive brand. And so helping them kind of, work through the different pieces to shape what kind of their next chapter could look like. And then Annette and I are in development now of another, which will be focused on coaching for managers in corporate settings, where we can go in and work with small groups to kind of unlock what's getting them stuck. There's a huge issue right now with kind of that managerial level in corporate America. There's a ton of burnout. There's a ton of overwhelm. They're trying to manage direct reports under them. There's not always transparency with what's happening at a leadership level. So there's a
Mm,
lot of coaching that's important in order to navigate those relationships and communicate effectively, kind of building their influence within the organization too. So that is something that is coming in 2026.
I see.
Yeah.
How exciting. So you
Yeah.
have like three like ways, three
Yeah.
offerings.
Yeah.
One of the other things I'd love to talk to you about, because you mentioned that this business has been 2 years in, and something I noticed with like a lot of newer coaches or people listening to this is like they're struggling with like, hey, what do I charge? How do I package
Mm,
this? Like,
yeah.
how do I come up with those initial numbers? And of
Yeah.
course, Samantha, you don't have to give any hard numbers,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
how did story behind like your pricing and how you structure your pricing, were there any key lessons that kind of influenced that your current perspective?
Yes. I so was fortunate kind of earlier on when I was doing this to have some contacts who were executive recruiters. So initially I just really did the research. I looked and looked to see kind of what was out there on the internet in terms of what people were charging, looked at some existing career coaches that I thought were doing sort of similar work or the kind of work that I was doing. And really kind of just had those conversations to say, what, you know, would you expect that I could charge? I found that I was undercharging. So
Mm.
that was kind of a big lesson of, hey, I actually could charge more and not doing that. And so I think it's really important early on not to just sort of guess and charge some fee. The other thing, though, I think is, again, it comes back to communication. I think making people aware of what your is so that it's really about the money. It's about what's the value that they're getting? What's the kind of transformation? Is this something that they're going to work with you, but they're going to take skills or insight away and be able to apply it, moving forward? With Light Her Way, we've been really thoughtful about brand ambassadors too. So
Mm.
we've that I think has helped us in terms of having some brand champions out there who can really speak to, there are other board readiness programs out there. Universities run board readiness programs. They can be priced, for one program that, let's say it's 3 to 4 month program, it can be, $6,000 up to $15,000. We right now, I can't say always, but early on, we're charging $2,000 for a 4 month program with another $1,000, so going up to $3,000 for opportunities to do things like mock interview and some private coaching sessions with us, word bio review kind of more intensely to shape those.
Mm.
Again, we're under the price of others, but our strategy is really that, there are incredible women who are completely qualified for the boardroom, who are looking for this kind of support, are looking for this kind of community. And we really wanted it to be accessible. And it's not always accessible at a 15,000, not to say to devalue those programs, because they are amazing programs, I'm sure. But the cost issue for us, as we've had conversations with a lot of women, is something that has come up again and again. So we were very thoughtful about creating a program that was really accessible in that way.
Yeah, that's always the really tough part too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because one, you're a business and you, of course, need to profit, but then there's this meaningful side,
Yeah.
this deeper side of like, oh, want to make it accessible for others.
And I think,
That's really interesting.
and I
Yeah.
think that, just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think for us too, we wanted to be, we needed kind of the proof of concept, right? We get asked a lot, like, so the women coming out of your program, are they then going on boards? And we'll always say, we don't match them, right? Like, we're not recruiters and we don't, do that piece of it. But what we do is curate the spaces, help them make those connections, right? Like
Mm.
we're building kind of the foundation so that they can go on. Have women come out of our program and join boards? Yes. So there's a proof of concept there, but in order to get that proof of concept, I think you do need to be somewhat flexible in how you approach having people take your program, right? I mean, if we feel like there's a lot of value for someone at a certain company, right, to come in, or maybe they can be someone who will introduce us to others. There's flexibility, I think, in looking at that value in terms of the kind of holistic relationship that we focus on, I think much more so than, pay us $10,000 and then that's just not kind of who we are. And I think part of it is because although we're not a nonprofit, it is a bit of a mission for us too, right?
Kind of curious, have you charged like 10,000 or 15,000 in the past, like these other programs?
No.
I'll
be honest, I think it depends on the type of program that will come out. If we take going into a company, right, and having that company apply learning and development funds or training and development funds to it, yes, there's a different profitability because you can scale it because you've got more people there. So maybe you go in and do 10-person coaching and then they bring you back in to do coaching either longer term with those 10 or with a new 10. Right. So that's a different model and kind of where maybe some of the higher prices will come just because that's kind of more of the norm.
I see.
For Board of Advisor, this is a program that some are using as a stepping stone. So they're thinking about joining a board 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And there's others who have joined a board literally during the existing cohort that we're in right now. We've had 2 people who just joined boards. So they're at different stages. And I think 15,000, you're at a really, really, and I think it's important to understand what that sort of price elasticity is going to be.
Like people value paying like higher ticket versus like lower ticket or something like that. Do you feel like
I think that there's a
exceptions to rules?
perception. Yes. I think there's a perception of value out there. But I think the reality for us as a growing organization, there's a willingness really, to at least in this one program, like, yes, there is that different kind of those higher packages that completely, you can justify the price of that. Do I think, our program is worth and absolutely at that level of other board programs? 100%. But as we're growing, as we're going into our 4th cohort, it is important for us to be able to establish, again, proof of concept, to establish credibility. So it's not that the price may stay at that level always, but right now, based on conversations we've had, that's kind of a comfortable place. And we've talked to a lot of other women who have sort of coaching programs and have provided us, a lot of feedback. I mean, that's one thing we so value is speaking to the participants or even potential participants and asking the question, like, does this seem in line with what you would budget towards, like a professional development type program? And it's in the range, I would say, of $1,000 to $3,000 for something like this. There are other mastermind type programs that, I have seen be $25,000, but you're going after a business owner that's a really different profile. And so it's important to make sure that that 2 things line up, right?
Kind of curious too, because you're talking about like, hey, right now, the most important thing is like proof of concept at the moment. I'm also really curious about like your future goals as well. So kind of curious, where do you want this coaching business to take you in the next few years? Do you have desires to scale, hire more people? Do you have secret ambitions no one knows about?
Good question. So we also started a community on Mighty Networks, and we have, I think, maybe roughly 40, 45 women on there now. It's, again, very new, but that's where we see more of an ability to scale the community. So offering different curated spaces. So when people join Board of Advisors, we have an exclusive space on Mighty Networks for those women. So women who are our faculty advisors, we invite to join. They don't have to, but they can choose to. The board candidates who have come through our program can interact with other women who are focused on board development. And then we'll have some other spaces. So that's kind of where we see a lot of value in terms of us being able to scale, is not only with the coaching program, but also the greater community. And then, as I said, kind of the corporate coaching, right? That managerial coaching is also where we see some higher profitability, just because it's a different structure. It's a different structure of program. It's a different, budget allowance, et cetera, et cetera.
Something I'm also curious about too is I think sometimes in business, it's really easy to see the highlight reels on like Instagram and stuff, right? But one of the things I'm always very curious about is like, I guess in this season of your business right now, what are some growing pains that you're kind of noticing right now? Was there anything that was kind of unexpected happening right now as well?
I think there's always ebb and flow. I think sometimes we see, and here's where some coaching actually comes into the conversations that we're having with prospects. We've had conversations where women say, yeah, I've thought about board service, but I'm there yet, meaning they don't perceive that they have the experience yet to join. And I'm not talking about an entry-level woman. I'm talking about VPs in very large SVPs in very large companies. So there's a gap, a perception gap there that needs to kind of be filled in. And that's where it's really interesting, because we'll have some conversations and say, let us tell you, not only are you qualified, but we can help you identify pathways if this is something that's really interesting to you or something that you want to pursue. So I think initially maybe we didn't know how much of a sounding board and the value of being a sounding board, that piece of it would come in to the coaching. So I think having conversations is time consuming, but really important for us to be able to answer questions and we always get like very similar questions, from leaders who are thinking about joining boards and wondering, can you peek at my LinkedIn and just see if you think I'm qualified? Right. And, we have women who are in our program with experience at huge companies like Google and Apple, and had experience at Condé Nast and Intuit MailChimp, and really huge companies that come in with questions, that come in with doubt. Imposter syndrome is real. And so I think that's also why it's so important for us, and why I come back to kind of the proof of concept, because it's those testimonials. It's women who have kind of come through that transformation that can share those stories with potential people coming in. And I think once we have more of those stories to share, the ability to scale will come. But that's a bit of a growing pain, only in terms of how time consuming, I think, because also this is a longer term program, right? If 5 to 7 women are coming through and it takes 3 to 4 months, right? Yeah. That's a bit of a growing pain, I'd say.
Sounds like the work that you do is when you're talking about like imposter syndrome and holding space for these women, it sounds like it's pretty intimate. And so how do you kind of balance everything so that your cup stays full? Or how do you and your co-founder, because it's not only yourself.
It's an insightful question, and thank you for asking that. We had a connectors roundtable that was a couple weeks ago, and someone who had been coming to a couple different events through Light Her Way came to that call, and we hadn't seen her for a little while, and we were happy to have her back. And she shared with us that they were going through some things at her company, and she just really needed this space that day. Having someone come and share that kind of vulnerability, and that the space we were holding was so valuable that it was sort of an oasis for her to come and connect is, you asked what fills our cup. I mean, that's why we do this, right? It's not only the two of us, but it's the community of women leaders who might be going through something and can ask others within the community. It's the value of connecting them, with other women too, who might be experiencing something similar. And just having a space where they can come and say, like, I don't know how I'm going to tackle this, but I just want someone to listen. And we've found that kind of over and over again. And I think the times that we're in across the world, there's a lot of different factors going on. And I think it's becoming more and more important. You see even with like the growth and adoption of AI, how companies are focused much more on hiring for soft skills, for communication, for collaboration, for the human-centric, pieces that are going to drive transformation and, at those companies. And listening is a piece of that. I mean, leaders' ability to listen is undervalued. And I think for us, being able to just get feedback that what we're doing is meaningful completely fills our cup. And it's why we continue to do it. It's kind of also those like aha moments. We had someone who joined a board recently who said, I never would have done this had I not gone through this cohort, because I never would have even thought that I could just call them up and ask if they're looking for new board members. And again, like this is an SVP at a huge company. And so to be able to create that kind of mindset shift is just makes it all really worth it.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. There's just so much I want to say about that. I know we're coming at time soon. I'll give my final thoughts in a second. But Samantha, how do people find you and connect with you?
So they can go to our website, which is a long website name, but https:// it's lightherway.my.canva.site. So that's the website. They can connect with us on LinkedIn. We have a Light Her Way company page, and then they can go to my individual LinkedIn profile or Annette, so they can reach out that way. And then just through email. On the website, we have different ways they can book time with us. They can explore applying. There's an application form for Board of Advisors if they're interested. And then our email is just lightherwaycommunity@gmail.com. And Annette and I get that shared email. And so we just try to be accessible and can reach out really any of those ways.
Yeah. So fun fact, Samantha, I used to be a drug dealer. I used to be a pharmacist. So I picked up really bad handwriting and I know how to use a fax machine. Pretty useless. But the reason why I say this, as I'm looking through my notes that I took while you were speaking, some takeaways I had was like the power of like listening, holding space. And one of the most important things was just like connecting to the meaningful work. I think so many times business owners, like we can get caught up in the minutia of like, oh yeah, marketing, all this sort of stuff that we kind of disconnect from why we actually do this. And something I really took away was like, we do it for the aha moments, those mindset shifts, those paradigm shifts that we have with our coaching clients. So that's pretty much my long-winded way of saying, hey, Samantha, I really appreciate your work. Your work matters. And thank you just for sharing your time, your stories and experience and wisdom on the podcast today. And it was kind of funny that you used to work for Comedy Central. I would never expected that with Hugh Hefner and all that.
A very project. I walked in at 22 years old and they said, here's a research of all of these videos of Hugh Hefner being interviewed. And that was my background research. And I went,
what a trip.
From environment to government consulting was like, but Yeah, and I think just quickly, what you
Yes.
just said about finding the meaning in coaching. I mean, coaching is really a relationship, right? I mean, that's what I think is so important. And that's what I think differentiates the really good coaches from the not great coaches. And something that I have seen make us stand out, or people, see people react to more, is being really authentic and not, I love AI for different reasons, but the number of emails I get that are so generic, that are clearly pulling from my website, saying that oh, someone was so impressed by, X, Y, and Z. It's an immediate delete. Like, it's an
Yeah.
immediate delete. And I want to shout from the rooftops, let's pull back and use AI in a thoughtful, meaningful way. But we have to be human first. We have to, in the coaching, that's where the value is. It's in that back and forth, and it's in that building of a relationship space and building trust that, no one's going to take away. Right. So that's really where I think the work and the transformation is most successful and most sustainable.
Yeah, thank you so much for reminding us that too, because you're right. With the advent of AI, we're gonna see. I think it's gonna be kind of like a civil war where there's gonna be one part of the internet where it's very impersonal. They're going to use AI to spam us, and then there's the other side of AI where we use it more of a co-pilot to better
Right.
yes, connect with others and stuff. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, Samantha. I really enjoyed it. And thank you for your work as well.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Great to be here.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.